Imagine standing on a beautiful sandy beach on a sunny day in Normandy, France. The waves are washing up on shore. The sound of the waves are relaxing. Now imagine it is the 6th of June, 1944, and it is D-Day. The Germans are in positions high above the cliffs of Omaha Beach, and down below there are thousands of American casualties lying on the beach and floating in the water. Hello, my name is Timothy Hodgson, and I'm currently in the Air Force. I've been in the Air Force for 17 years. Today I'd like to talk about a trip I took to Normandy, France, and how that trip has deepened my appreciation for the Americans that had fought and died there that day. I'll be covering my visits to Omaha Beach, Pointe du Hoc, and what that experience has meant to me. As I was standing on the picturesque beach of Omaha, it was hard for me to imagine what tragedy had taken place there that day. Omaha Beach is a very beautiful, scenic area, and it has a lot of difficult obstacles that the American soldiers needed to overcome that day. And these obstacles required great sacrifices for these men to be successful. As I was standing there, and as far as I could see from side to side, Omaha Beach is spanned by high cliffs, making the assault on Omaha extremely difficult. And to me it seemed like it was almost an impossible mission. The German military had the positions high above the cliffs, and they were just waiting for the Americans on that day. As the boats landed and the Americans got off the boats, the Germans unleashed a fierce attack on them. Once the Americans were off their boats, and if they survived the initial gunfire, they had a long trip from the boats down to the shore. The Americans had faced many difficulties and obstacles, but because they were willing to make extreme sacrifices, they were able to overcome the German strongholds and push the Germans out. If they made it to the beach, there were many bodies floating in the water and laying in the sand that they had to physically and mentally maneuver around. It must have seemed like an impossible mission, but the only way out for these men was to go ahead, straight forward, and take the cliffs of Omaha Beach. Many men gave their lives, and there were thousands of casualties that day, but they overcame everything and won the battle for Omaha Beach. Along with the assault on Omaha Beach, the Army Rangers were given the task of ascending Pointe du Hoc with its 300-foot cliffs. As I stood at Pointe du Hoc and I looked down, I could see that the cliffs were extremely steep and some were completely vertical. It was at that moment that I realized how difficult that their mission was. Pointe du Hoc was a German artillery site that could bring artillery down on the beaches of Utah and Omaha. The Rangers had the task of ascending these cliffs and taking out these artillery guns. The Rangers climbed the cliffs using ropes, and they faced the Germans on their way up. As the Rangers were ascending, the Germans were trying to cut their ropes, and they were also firing down upon them as they were ascending up. And when the Rangers did make it to the top, the Germans were there waiting for them. Taking Omaha Beach and climbing the cliffs of Pointe du Hoc was extremely difficult, and it required great sacrifices. And visiting Normandy made me appreciate what these men did and what they gave to us that day. You know, reading about D-Day will give you the information about what happened, but being there and trying to paint the pictures of the tragedies that took place that day was extremely humbling for me. The visuals of the obstacles that I saw that day, the cliffs at Omaha Beach and Pointe du Hoc, they had to sacrifice so much so they could be successful. And that is something you cannot get from reading a book or seeing information about D-Day on a TV show. I will never forget the feeling of being in Normandy, France, and how it made me appreciate these men in a way that I could not or did not before my visit there. I've talked about the assault on Omaha Beach and Pointe du Hoc, and how visiting these places has increased my appreciation for what these men had done and gave. Now I'd like to go back and talk about a few of these items. These men took Omaha Beach and Point de Hoc under extremely difficult situations. There were many obstacles they needed to overcome, such as heavy gunfire when they got off the boats. If they made it off the boats and were safe, then they needed to make the long journey to the shores of Omaha and take the cliffs. The Rangers had to scale the 300-foot cliffs of Point de Hoc, while the Germans were attempting to cut their ropes and firing down upon them. My visit to these places made the information I had real to me, and it deepened the great appreciation I have for all that were there that day and all that these men had gave and sacrificed to us.